The following conversation is with Carl Pullein. Carl is the author of the book Your Time, Your Way and founder of Carl Pullein International. This is the Vaibhav Podcast. Carl Pullein, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you for having me.
It's an honor to have you here. So my first question is, why do we procrastinate?
There can be multiple reasons why people procrastinate, and not all procrastination is bad. The good procrastination is where a lot of your fantastic ideas will come from. And often it's just your brain's way of saying, I need a bit more time to think about this. That's the good procrastination. And you want to encourage that. That's where you get brilliant, amazing ideas from. Then there's
How
the
do we
bad procrastination.
how
Sorry,
do
go
we
on.
differentiate between good and bad procrastination?
Well, yeah, so the bad procrastination is when you know you should be doing something, but you're not doing it. And that can be caused by a multiple of reasons. One of which, the most common of which, is what you want to do is not very clear. Like you're not entirely sure what needs to happen. So your brain just kind of gets stuck, doesn't know what to do. And we'll say, oh, I'm procrastinating. Often all you need to do is just step back and say, okay, this task is too big. I need to break it down. What's the very next thing I need to do? And a really simple example would be, let's say I have to clean the bathroom. And I've got to clean the bathroom. Well, what would be the very first step? I would say, grab the towels and put them in the laundry basket. Now I've started. And often that's the thing. We get stuck in these gears and we're not moving anywhere. Just pick the first thing. It could be, clean the toothpaste glass. Anything small, just to get you started. And then there's another form of procrastination, which is when you really don't know what you want. There's no motivation. And so you don't have any drive, any energy to do it. Simply because you really just are not motivated by it. So you'll find any excuse not to do it. And a lot of people have this problem with exercise, for example. We know a little bit of exercise every day is good for us. It's good for our health. But it's, just thinking about going out for a walk or just thinking about perhaps joining a gym or even more ambitious, perhaps running. You say, oh, no way, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
So there's no drive, there's no motivation. But I can assure you, if you go see the doctor and the doctor says, if you don't start exercising, you're going to be dead in 6 months, you'll start exercising. Now you've got a purpose. Now you've got a reason to exercise. So often procrastination is because there's no motivation to do something.
Yeah, you said.
But you asked me the difference between good and bad. Good. You can tell when you're in the good procrastination is because you're really excited. It's like, oh, yeah, but you're not actually doing anything, but all these ideas are coming. That's good procrastination. Bad procrastination leaves you feeling unhappy, down, low energy, because you know you should be doing something, but you're not doing it.
Yeah, you mentioned starting is the hardest step as you want to do the work, but you're not able to start it. So, how do you, or what do you say to yourself? Like, okay, this is the first step, I should do it. What is the best way to do that?
What's the very next thing? What is the very next thing that you can do? I need to record the audio book of my latest book.
Yeah.
And, for like 3 or 4 weeks, I was going, oh, I'm not going to do that today. I'm not going to do that today. Eventually, I'm kind of like looking at it going, okay, what's the one thing I can do in the next 30 minutes to get this going? So, okay, let's record the forward. It took me 25 minutes to do it. It took 2 attempts, but I did it. And now I think I'm on about chapter 9.
Wow.
But it started by just reading the forward.
Yeah. Yeah, starting is the hardest step, I can feel. Once
So
you start,
what's the very
you go
next
in
thing?
the
What's
flow.
the one thing you could do?
Yeah. So, in your opinion, is productivity about maximizing output or maximizing impact? How can we differentiate between being busy and being effective?
This is a good question because I think we're getting a little bit in the world today. We're getting a bit confused about what productivity is.
Yeah.
Productivity is a way to measure output based on the inputs that you're putting in. So if you're a factory worker, it's very easy to measure that. I've got to do 100 widgets every day. I do 95. My boss can say, "Hey, you're not performing." If I do 105, my boss will say, "Hey, here's a bonus." I hope. But knowledge workers, how do you measure that? How do you measure a lawyer who comes up with a fantastic argument for his client whilst walking his dog or having a shower? You can't measure really knowledge work productivity. And that's where I think a lot of people are getting really confused about productivity. I'm a knowledge worker. I create content. I can measure my productivity by, I could write, say, 3 blog posts today, but the quality won't be very good. If I write 1 blog post, the chances are the quality will be very high. So, am I being productive by writing one or not productive? This is the real question. So, with knowledge work, I think we have to be a little bit more careful about how we define productivity. This is one of the reasons why in recent months, I've moved away from that word and moved more back towards time management because, in terms of knowledge workers, we can manage our time. We can't, change time itself, but we can actually manage what we do in the time that we have available. So if I have 8 meetings today, 8 hours of meetings today, and I work a 9 hour day, really all I've got is 1 hour to do work. There's no point in me having 50 tasks because that's not going to happen. I have to be very careful about what I do in that hour. It might be that I take a nap.
Yeah.
That might be the best thing I do this,
Yeah.
today with
Yeah.
8 hours of meetings. So I think we have to be a little bit careful when it comes to saying, how do you measure productivity? As a knowledge worker, I think it's not possible to do it. Uh, I tend to look at my week. I set myself a number of objectives. And the question I always ask myself on a Saturday morning when I do my weekly planning is, did I accomplish my objectives? And that might only be 2 or 3. It could be just move a project forward. It might be resolve this issue. Now, if I can say yes to that, to me, that's a productive week.
Yeah. Yeah, you could say that. People really, sometimes they do tasks in such a way that they don't realize they're not being effective. They're just being busy and they're thinking like, okay, I did something good work, but in reality, they haven't done any work. They were just being busy, and the output of the work is being nil or nothing.
Yeah,
And in the
yeah. I
end,
mean,
they're
that's why I think
just go
I
on.
think it's just one of those difficulties when you're doing knowledge work. And this is why companies have really struggled with trying to measure the output of a knowledge worker because you cannot
Yeah.
measure it.
I really like a essay by Strangest Loop, and it's a list of things that are not doing the thing. So here's a list of things that are not doing the thing. Listen this. Preparing to do
Mm.
the thing isn't doing the thing. Scheduling time to do the thing isn't doing the thing. Making a to-do list for the thing isn't doing the thing. Telling people you are going to do the thing isn't doing the thing. Messaging friends who may or may not be doing the thing isn't doing the thing. Writing a banger tweet about how you're going to do the thing isn't doing the thing. Hating on yourself for not doing the thing isn't doing the thing. Hating on other people who have done the thing isn't doing the thing. Hating on the obstacles in the way of doing the thing isn't doing the thing. Fantasizing about all of the adoration you'll receive once you do the thing isn't doing the thing. Reading about how to do the thing isn't doing the thing. Reading about how other people did the thing isn't doing the thing. Reading this essay isn't doing the thing. The only thing that is doing the thing is doing the thing.
Absolutely, 100% correct.
What do
One
you
of the
think
things
about
I
this?
will always warn people at is don't get don't get seduced by planning. You could plan for the next 30 years and move nothing forward.
Yeah.
And the only way to get something done is to do it. As it says, do the thing. Whatever it
Yeah.
is, do it.
Just do it. Yeah. I've
I
seen
mean,
people
the thing
making.
is, it can be very big. It is often very big. It's like, I need to do, I need to like do a new online course, for example. Well, I know that that's a 16-week project. But I also know what I need to do. I need to sit down and sketch out the ideas, then turn it into a an outline. But the biggest thing, the doing really, is sitting down in here in the studio and recording the course. So the goal
Yeah.
is always to get to the recording stage as quickly as I possibly can.
Yeah,
So
I've
to
seen.
avoid it, by the way, is to set deadlines.
Yeah, people do all the time. Like people set the deadlines, people plan everything, but the one thing they miss is that they don't start it. They feel good about it, that yeah,
Correct.
they have planned the thing, they have the deadline, they're being happy about it, but they don't start it, and after some time they regret, and they're like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
today I started to fail, so let's forget about it. I'll start from tomorrow,
Mm.
and this loops continues. I feel
Yeah. Mm.
as a student, I feel that.
Yes. No, it's the only way you can do it is to figure out what doing is.
Yeah.
And it's not planning, it's not thinking about it. And you're right, it's not calling other people asking how to do it. That's not doing it. Doing it is doing it.
Yeah, just do it. Just don't think anything about it.
Mm.
Just go and just do the work.
Correct.
Yeah. Once you start, you're in the flow and you will just completely finish it. I have felt that.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
So we are in the world where AI has just driven the world. So how do you think the rise of AI and automation will change the way humans manage their time and tasks?
No, in the foreseeable future, I don't think it will, because ultimately you have to, as it just said, you've got to do the thing. You can ask Chat GTP as much as you like how to do something, and it will tell you. I mean, it's brilliant. It will tell you how to do it, but you still got to do it yourself. And that's where AI isn't going to help you. The other problem I've noticed with AI is it cannot predict the future. It can only tell you about the past. And
Yeah.
I think people have to really, really remember that about AI. It's always looking backwards. It's never looking forwards. It cannot, because the future hasn't happened yet. So there's no record of it. So what I noticed is, for example, when I played around with AI tools, and all it's doing is, well, there was an app that had a lot of advertising recently, which promised it was an AI calendar. I think it's called Motion App or something. And I
Yeah.
tested
Motion.
it for an afternoon today. I thought, well, okay, I'm curious about this. What does it do? And I've put my tasks in and I put my schedule in. And it basically told me to do all the things like exercise and walk my dog at times in the day where it just wasn't possible. You see, the problem with AI is it doesn't know when you wake up in the morning that you've just had a fight with your partner, you've got a cold coming on, and you didn't sleep
Yeah.
very well last night. AI does not know that. So it
Yeah.
doesn't know your energy levels. It doesn't know whether you're preoccupied by that fight that you had with your mother or father or your partner. It doesn't know any of that. But these are actual critical uh, elements of whether you will have a good or bad day. And so I kind of gave up on Motion App very quickly because I realized it was the other thing I felt, by the way, the other thing I felt about it was really uncomfortable for a computer to tell me what to do and when. I mean, that's Matrix kind of level stuff.
Yeah.
And I mean, if some people want a computer to run their lives, that's fine. I mean, I'm okay with that. Not me. I want to be in control of my time. I want to make the decisions about what I do and when I do it. I don't want a computer telling me to do that. Now, for AI companies, they're going to have to overcome that barrier if they want to really make an impact in the world of productivity and time management. I mean, as I say, AI is brilliant at loads of stuff,
Yeah.
but
But
the biggest drawback it has at the moment is it cannot predict the future because it hasn't happened. And when it comes to productivity and time management, you are essentially dealing with the future.
yeah, and AI can't predict the human's emotion, and that's the most important thing.
No,
That's
Although
as
I
you
did
said.
hear somebody saying that one day we will be able to have chips implanted into our brain. I'm thinking,
The-
well, thank you, but no, thank you. I do not. I do not want to be alive when that's around.
yeah, the Neuralink, right? Yeah, they have
Mm,
some success right now.
mm.
So, do you think that technology does help in maximizing our productivity?
It does and it doesn't. I'm currently doing an experiment. I'm in the middle. Well, I've just started an experiment, a 3 month experiment using something called the Franklin Planner. Now, this was
Yeah,
iconic in the 1990s. Every business executive was carrying around one of these binders with their dates. Now, I'm really curious about whether this would still work in today's world because now, for instance, your calendar, I mean, the digital calendar is fantastic. I mean, people like you can schedule calls with me while I'm
yeah,
sleeping. My
yeah,
clients can schedule calls at any time of the day, and it automatically appears on my calendar. In the Franklin Planner days or the paper days, somebody had to call me or send me a letter or a fax, and then ask me, are you available on Monday? No, I'm not. And then we're back and forth. It would take forever. Today it can be done in seconds. So the calendar is brilliant. The area that I found where technology is not necessarily helpful is with things like the task manager or to-do list. Because, and it's really kind of counterintuitive, the task manager, the digital to-do list, that is too easy to put stuff into it. So we put all sorts of stuff in, like um, you know, brush the dog or
yeah,
wash the car. Um, we put really a lot of low value stuff in there. And if you're new to it, it's great because you've got loads of stuff going in there and it looks fantastic and you can organize it and play around with it and it does look wonderful. But at some point, you have to do that stuff. You have to do
yeah,
that work. And then you got, your daily task list turns out to be 150 tasks that you've got scheduled for today. And you think, oh, where do I start? And that negative procrastination kicks in because now you've
yeah,
got too much choice. With paper to-do lists, you have to think before you write it down. You have to think, do I really need to do this? Do I have time to do this? So at the moment, what I'm discovering is there is actually, in some areas like digital notes, I think are brilliant because carrying around like notebooks can be quite heavy.
hmm,
And it's difficult to find if you've got multiple notebooks. It's difficult to find what you're looking for unless you're ultra organized. Digital, it's great. You can just type in a keyword into something like Evernote or Apple Notes or OneNote, and boom, you've got it. It's right in front of you. So those areas where technology is brilliant, but there are some, for example, thinking time. Really, I've discovered that, and there's loads of scientific studies on this now. Is that I think there was a wonderful quote: "When you're doing your planning, do it with a pencil in your hand." Because what it means is that act of forming letters on a page is connecting to your creative side and you're planning. So you need creativity. You need to think creatively. Tapping on a keyboard doesn't do that. It actually connects to your editing side of your brain. So you start correcting spelling mistakes and grammar mistakes. So you're not actually planning. You're just trying to keep things looking right, which is not what you want to be doing when you're planning. You want to open up the creative side of you and just scribble down everything on pen and paper. And I've discovered this year, as I've been playing around with planning on paper, it is absolutely true. My planning is so much better now than when I was doing it directly into a notes app. So I think if you really want to get to be better organized, better at planning stuff, and also being a little bit more focused on what's important, there needs to be a hybrid approach. Let technology do what technology is great at, which is your calendar and your digital notes. But when it comes to deciding what you need to do today, you probably find a piece of paper and a pencil is much, much better.
yeah. I can relate to that. Yeah, it's true. I mean, I
Mm,
used to schedule my time and all the to-do list through the laptop only, but I'll try this. It's good.
mm,
So, I'm also a student, and there are many of my viewers who are students. So, using this technology, how can students utilize technology without falling into the trap of digital distractions?
Well, for a student, it's more about, okay. So you've got X amount of subjects that you're studying in any semester. You're not doing 4 years worth of studying in one semester, so it's
Mhm.
broken up.
Yeah.
So at the start of a semester, I would be looking at what are my subjects. So I studied law at university. So I think, if I remember correctly, we had to study 9 subject or 7 core subjects, and then there was 3 optional subjects. So there was things like land law, contract law, European law, stuff like that. So each semester, I knew that we were going to have 4 subjects to study. So it was a case of now I went to university in the end of 1990s, so about 1998, 1999. So we were just kind of breaking into that digital world.
Yeah.
But
At
what
that
I did was I bought I bought notebooks for each subject. So in the lectures, I'd be writing down my notes, but I'd also have a digital tape recorder. So that would be on the desk in the lectures, and I would record the lecture. And then later in the evening, I would then go through, back to the lecture and just update my notes. Now, you can do this in OneNote, Evernote, Apple Notes, Notion, whatever notes app you want to use, or even Google Docs or anything like that. You can do exactly the same thing. Have your laptop there in the lecture, type your lecture notes, but have a way of being able to review those notes immediately, well, not necessarily immediately, but within a few hours of that lecture. So this will then come back to being structuring your day. So I remember when I was at university, I would be Sunday to Thursday, 9 till 11 p.m. That's when I would sit down and go through my lecture notes and update them, check sources with the textbooks and stuff like that. You can do that obviously with digital tools today. Friday nights was rugby. I'd go and watch rugby, and Saturday nights we'd go to the club dancing. So you need to give your brain a break. Brain is actually like a muscle. You can't be lifting heavy weights every single day. You need to give it a break. Well, the brain needs a break. Um, but that was my schedule, and that was my like routine during term time, semester time. I would 9 till 11 was always I would always disappear into my little study and go through my lecture notes and make sure they're up to date. So you can now combine technology by having everything digital, like create notebooks for each subject and then put your lecture notes in there.
Yeah, but at that time, you there was not such a boom in the internet, so you wouldn't have so much stuff available on the internet. But today, if you go on your device, you will see stuff which are gonna distract you. How to manage that? Like, if I go, you said like to record the lecture note. Like we have our classes available on online, right? We go on the YouTube, we see our classes, but there are some other columns where you can have tons of video which are entertaining. So
Mm-hmm.
how to not go there and just focus on your work?
Well, for me, when I'm studying it, because I like to still learn stuff now. One of my favorite subjects is history, but I'll also be watching entrepreneurial videos and business videos and stuff. But when I'm doing that, I do actually use the TV, not a computer. So I have a little. Sometimes I use the iPad and Apple Pencil and stuff, and I'm writing all the stuff down from there. But I will then go full screen when you're watching a lecture. So there's none of those sidebars tempting you with
Yeah.
comedy videos or whatever. You need to go full screen and go into it, because then you have that focus. You get that focus. If you try to watch it in I think they call it the standard viewer with the sidebar on YouTube
Yeah.
with all the other videos, sure, you are going to be distracted. The other quick tip, by the way, is to put on Do Not Disturb on whatever device you're using to watch that video. So there's no notifications coming in while you're doing that studying. Now, I know some people get a little bit that the FOMO, the fear of missing out, but we're only talking maybe an hour before you can just go and check what's come in. while you've been studying. Your brain needs a break anyway. So you can take an hour. After an hour, you can take 10, 15 minutes and go through that. But what you'll find is you do get absorbed. If you're in full screen watching those online lectures, you will become absorbed. If you don't go full screen, yeah, you will get distracted.
Yeah, that's the toughest thing to control our brain, because our brain likes the pleasure, likes a dopamine release. So it does say, let's go
Mm-hmm.
watch some videos for 5 minutes and then we'll come back to the task. But what happens when we click on the video? We never come back. We never come back to the task. It's hard.
Mm.
So
Go full
uh,
screen. Go full screen. It's the only way I can do it.
what I do is I download the video and I cut the internet and I watch the videos I wanted to watch.
Well, yeah, okay, that's another way too. Yeah.
So this is the question I wanted to ask. For individuals pursuing multiple career paths or entrepreneur ventures, right? I want to be an entrepreneur. How can they effectively manage their time and resources?
Well, you've got to start with the fact that you've actually only got 24 hours a day, and inside that, you've got to sleep. So, really, even if you're only working off 5 hours sleep or 6 hours sleep, which isn't recommended, but even if you were to do that, it doesn't leave you with very much. 18 hours, 19 hours of work per day. Um, the thing is that you've got to decide what it is that you're going to focus your attention on that day. We go back to that procrastination. If you're all over the place, nothing will ever get done. And there's lots of people out there who are brilliant at starting things and absolutely terrible at finishing things
Finishing things.
because they lose interest, they lose focus. What I generally do is, this is one of the reasons why a weekly planning is so important, and making sure each day, in my case, I call it my creative time or creation time, if you like. So for me, most days, 9:30 to 11:30 in the morning, that's creative time. And everybody in my circle of friends, my family, they all know, do not disturb me between 9:30 and 10:30, 11:30. So I know that if I can spend 2 hours a day on a specific thing, by the end of the week, all my objectives will be done. It's just 2 hours. Then you can go all over the place. Now, for somebody who thinks, oh, I've got all these things I want to do, if you try and do another 2 hours in the afternoon, it is possible, but you're going to be exhausted.
Yeah.
And once you become exhausted, that's when your motivation and enthusiasm and energy levels in general will just start dropping. It's a little bit like Ernest Hemingway, the author, who would only write for, I think it was 3 hours a day. Now, he didn't care if he wrote 250 words or 2,500 words. He focused on sitting down and writing for 3 hours a day. And he would do that every morning. In the afternoon, he'd go to his favorite bars, he'd drink, he'd socialize, he'd have lunch with all his friends. But the one thing that was non-negotiable was that 3 hours of writing time every morning. Ian Fleming, who created James Bond, was exactly the same. It was non-negotiable. 9 till 12 for him. Sit down, write. So, if you're focusing on the actual output, the work, yeah, you're going to get disappointed because some days you'll be good, some days you'll be bad. But if you commit yourself, saying no, every day at this time, and this is brilliant for students because you generally have a bit more control over your time. Every day at this time, I'm going to do my studies. Now, I would say don't go beyond 2 hours before you take a break. If you really want to do, like when you're studying for exams, you may need to do 4 or 5 hours a day. So it's 2 hours, 2 hours, and then an hour in the evening. But you don't want to be going beyond 2 hours. But if you can do 2 hours a day, 5 days a week, that's 10 hours of really solid focus work. You can do a lot in 10 hours.
Yeah. So that we can say is the deep work timing, right? Like that 3 hours or
Yeah.
2 hours is the time for the deep work.
Yes, and you do need to make sure that you know what that is before you start. Don't want to waste the first 30 minutes trying to decide what to do. So you want to be, this morning, I am, like today, I know this afternoon, actually for me today, I will write my podcast script. I know I will do that. There's no question about it. I've even actually started the page. I know what I'm going to write about. My notes are ready, so I have no excuses. I will do it.
Yeah. So you says there that your friends know that there is a time from 9:30 to 11:30 that nobody's going to disturb you. They know that it's a time of deep work. So what are some effective ways to communicate and set boundaries with others to protect your productive time?
Well, just tell everyone, don't disturb me. I'm available all day except 9:30 to 11:30. You can't. I mean, one of the things when I'm working with my coaching clients, for example, I mean, this is not something that you can suddenly decide tomorrow. This is what you're going to do. It takes time. You've got to kind of train people. Now, I remember when I first came to Korea, the culture here is quite different. The business culture here is quite different from the UK. So in the UK, for example, your boss or your colleagues would never dream of calling you outside of work hours. It was just no, it just didn't happen. When I came to Korea, that's a different culture. Your boss can call you at any time in the day, 2 a.m., 3 a.m., anything. I remember one Saturday morning, my Korean boss, when I was working for a company here, called me on a Saturday morning. I ignored the call. I think I'm not answering that. It's weekend. I don't work weekends. But I called him back on Monday morning, and the first thing he said is, "I called you. You didn't answer. Why?" Why Saturday morning? I mean, why? Sorry, I'm not answering my phone on Saturday morning. Um, I said, "Oh, I'm very sorry." And then I just kind of moved on and said, "How can I help you?" I then mentioned it to a Korean colleague of mine, and they were shocked that I had ignored my boss's phone call. I'm saying, but it's Saturday. Why? Why? Uh, but the thing is, my former boss, Dr. Min, he's become one of my best friends in Korea. I don't work for his company anymore, but he's an absolutely wonderful person. But he said, "You taught me a lesson
Yeah.
that with my non-Korean workers, don't call them outside of working hours because they don't answer the phone." And I also taught him that he's never ever called me in 20 years since on a weekend. And actually, these days now, he will actually send me a message, usually on a Monday morning, and say, "If you get time, can you call me sometime today?" So I've trained him, but I trained him by accident. And I
Yeah.
realized that because we're not dealing with machines, we're dealing with human beings, and people do respect other people's time, but they won't respect your time if you don't respect your time.
Yeah. This is the best thing that I ever said, right? You have to respect your time. If you don't respect your time, others won't. And this is where everybody goes south.
Yep. Yeah. Even my wife knows, don't disturb me between 9:30 and 11:30. Although she has a bad habit of sending me a text message to say, when you finished, I need to talk to you.
And you can't compromise
So she's
there.
very clever now. She's trying to find ways around my rule, if you like.
And that's an area where you can't compromise. Right.
But my notifications are always turned off as well, so I don't actually see it until I finish.
Yeah. So, how important is the physical environment in maintaining productivity, and what are the tips for optimizing one's workspace?
I think that it is important. I mean, I've kind of come to that conclusion by through practice. If you if I let's say, for example, if I was to go to a place called Itaewon in Seoul, which is kind of like they call it the foreigner district, like all the foreign people tend to gather in Itaewon. If I was to go to Starbucks there and try and do some work, I wouldn't be able to work because there's too much English going on around me. So my
Yeah.
ears are picking up parts of conversation. So what I find is that if I can find a coffee shop or a cafe, if I'm going to go work outside, make sure there is no English speakers in there because I can switch off Korean.
Yeah.
So it's like white noise to me then. But for the most part, it depends on what kind of work you're doing. If you're meeting with a colleague, sure, coffee shops are great. You can meet with them. Offices are great. But sometimes, yeah, you do need to have that quiet work. One tip, by the way, that you can do is just put some headphones on. You don't have to listen to anything.
Yeah.
Just put either earpods in or headphones on. People will leave you alone.
Yeah, because
You don't
yeah,
have to listen to anything. This is, by the way, brilliant on an airplane if you don't want to speak to the person sat next to you. Just put headphones on, they won't disturb you. As I say, you don't have to listen to anything. Just the fact that you've got earplugs in or headphones on, people will leave you alone. So if you can and you want to be undisturbed, just put some headphones on or earpods in. Um, People will leave you alone.
yeah, it that's the best thing to say. So, do you think does environment play a crucial role in your productivity? Like, if your workspace is organized, you'll work more, or if your workspace is messy, then there are high chances that you will delay the work or procrastinate.
Ooh, now this one's a difficult one because there's something that Robin Sharma said that really rings true to me. When you're working on something, the beginning is exciting. In the middle, it gets very messy, and at the end, it's beautiful. Now, what he means by that, and he often shares pictures on his social media on this, is when he's writing a book, for example, he's got papers and notebooks all over his desk. And I notice that when I'm in the middle of, say, creating a new course or doing even a YouTube video, my desktop screen is just full of stuff. I mean, it's a complete mess, but that's okay because I'm in the middle. I need it all. I don't know where it all is. I'm looking for it, but it's all part of that creative process. It's got to get messy at some point. But, and here's the big important thing is when you finish, you tidy up so that when you start the next thing, you do have a clear workspace, a clear desktop. Because then you will procrastinate. You will get distracted. Oh, I must clean this up first. Well, 20 minutes disappears. 20 minutes of not doing what you should be doing has disappeared. So it's a difficult one there is in the middle of working on a project, things are going to get messy. That's how it should be. That's how creativity works. It needs to be messy. But when you've finished, you tidy up and you put things back where they should be. Now, I wish I followed that rule. I did do some video editing yesterday and my desktop, complete mess. I haven't cleaned it up yet, but I will. I will clean it up before before I finish my day. But really, this is what you should be doing: is after you finish, clean up. But in the
Yeah,
middle
so
of it, it's going to be messy. That's how it works. That's how creativity works. It gets messy.
yeah, I can feel that because in the end, sometimes when I don't clean my desk, when I go for the work or next day to start, I don't feel like I don't want to. I want to do the work. I'm just like, let's ignore it. Let's go do something else. Yeah, I
Mm.
then think I think environment plays a crucial role. If your room is not clean, then you will not be feeling to work something up, right?
But it also gives you an excuse to procrastinate because
Yeah.
now you think, oh, I must clean up my room before I start doing this work. So it's better to do it before you finish. At the end of the day, when I finish here in the office, I do always tidy up before I can go through into the house. Because when I come through the next day, everything needs to be in its rightful place.
Yeah, that's my sister taught me this because I was a very messy person. I used to never clean my room, but my sister taught me this that to do the work and to study, to clean your mind, you have to clean your room. Then only you can study. This is the greatest lesson that she taught me. So
Mm.
sometimes back I was introduced to journaling, and I do journal. I do write journal sometimes. So how can individual effectively use journaling as a tool for tracking productivity and personal progress?
Well, journaling really is more of a spiritual thing. I find it's more about emptying your mind of your worries, your things you're excited about. I know a lot of people often ask me about how do you start journaling. I said, well, when you start journaling, it's a little bit like when you meet a stranger for the first time. You're not going to open up and start telling them about all your emotional worries and your political views and stuff like that. You don't
Yeah.
do that. You just talk about the weather and what you've done in the last few days. That's what you should do when you start writing a journal. Is just write down about the weather, maybe write what you did yesterday. That's it. Gradually, though, if you're consistent with this and you do it every single day, you start to open up, just like it is when you meet a stranger and that stranger becomes a friend. You start opening up, you start telling them about your emotional state and your political views, perhaps. That's when, but it takes time. And the same with journaling. Now, the thing about for journaling is you can track anything. So I track in my journal my exercise. So whenever I do when I do exercise, I just write down in the margin what I did. So it could be like 50 push-ups, 3 planks, whatever. I just write it down. I also write down my morning routines. I don't need to, but it's just a habit. I just write down in the margin morning routines and check them off that I did them. I suppose it's that morning dopamine hit just to get going. But the actual
Yeah.
writing of the journal, what it does is it actually starts to highlight areas of your life that you might not be where you want to be. So earlier this year, I was struggling a little bit to get consistent with exercise. And I noticed that I was writing a lot about not exercising. And I could see it. And every morning I'm writing about it. I'm thinking, okay, this needs fixing. Because you can see, because it's like your subconscious brain starts writing stuff out, and you can then get deeper into what you are and what you're not doing. And it's the same with like anything in your life that you're not happy with. If you're doing consistently with your journal, it will start bubbling to the top. You'll start writing about it. And that is like the little indicator say, this needs changing. You need to change something here, change a habit, start doing something or stop doing something. But that's the beauty of journaling is it keeps you balanced, if you like. It helps you to keep balance because when you're not writing very much, that means things are good. When you're writing a lot, it means things are not good and you need to change something.
Yeah. So, what's the difference between this journaling and this to-do list? Like, are they same or they're different?
Journaling is just about a flow of thoughts. It's just what you're thinking about and you're just writing. It's a wonderful way to set the day. Some people do write their to-do list afterwards. I tend to write out um, what my two objectives are for the day. So what are the two things that must happen today? That's always I write in my journal. I don't write all the other little tiny things like reply to emails and do my admin. That's never in my journal. But my two objectives generally are what are the two things that I really want to get done today and must do today? Because that's where the next day I can look at that and say, yep, I did them, or no, I
Yeah.
didn't. Why? Um, it keeps me accountable. So, in a way, a journal is about keeping you accountable. We've got to be careful with task lists and to do lists because they should not be driving your day. What should be driving your day is your calendar because that's real, that's live, that never
Mm.
lies to you. It tells you these are the 24 hours you have today, these are your commitments to other people, this is the time you've got available to do these tasks. So the tasks is subservient to the calendar. Today, Thursday for me, I call it calls day. I have a lot of calls on a Thursday, so I only have 3 or 4 tasks to do today. Because no point in me having 30 or 40 tasks because I won't have the time to do it. So you got to be careful with a task list. Is it should always be subservient to your calendar, but a journal is more about writing about how you feel, what's going on in your life, whether you're happy and whether you're not happy. It really balances you. It's a wonderful thing to do.
How to start this calendar? How to write it?
Well, the calendar is an interesting one because I always say start with what you want first. So if you want an hour of exercise every day, schedule that first. If you want something else for your personal life, you want reading time or TV watching time, schedule that first. Then schoolwork or work goes in. Now, of course, you don't want to be saying that, at 9 a.m., I'm going to go and do my exercise. When you already know that at 9 a.m. you need to be in the lecture theatre or you need to be at work. I mean, you've got to be realistic.
Yeah.
Um, but you start with a calendar and when I say you create your perfect week. Now, the perfect week is it doesn't mean sitting by the pool drinking cocktails. That is not that kind of perfect week. What we're talking about is in an ideal world, this is how much time I will spend doing this kind of work. This is how much time I will spend socializing, exercising, sleeping. Just get it all into the calendar so you know what you want out of life. And then look at your real calendar, and the goal is to merge it. Try to get your real calendar on the same lines as your perfect calendar. Nobody ever does it, by the way, but you can get close.
Yeah.
You can get very close to developing what I call the perfect week.
And start.
But always
It will be.
start with what you want first.
Yeah. Do you think you can be consistent or productive for like long time, like in the scale of 2 3 years? You can be consistent for 2 years or 3 years.
Oh, yeah. I've been consistent now for about 15. So, now things change. I mean, let's be honest, things change. I used to do my focus work in the evening. These days, I do it 9:30 to 11:30 in the morning. So things do change, but the focus time has not changed. It's just the time I do it has changed over the last 15 years. Um, and also, like, my work now has completely changed. I don't do face-to-face English teaching anymore. So everything I do is now online. So, okay, so that's changed. I can now control my calendar a lot better than I used to. I'm not at risk of traffic jams, public
Yeah.
transport delays. None of that now is ever an issue because all my meetings are online, so there's no traffic problems at all. So
So
of
how
course
to
things change, but
so how to
um,
stay consistent for this long time?
this is really about knowing what you want. And that's a really critical part of living life in general, is being very clear about what you want. So I'm not very good working for companies. I've never enjoyed it. I've always felt trapped. So it was pretty obvious from a very early age that I needed to run my own business, because that gives me the freedom to do the things that I want to do without having a committee meeting about anything. I can just decide I'm doing that. Um, so that was a critical part of understanding myself. And it's really then about saying, okay, I need to be doing 2 hours of work a day, solid work, undisturbed, focused work a day. Where am I going to find those 2 hours? Well, as I say, it's 9:30 to 11:30 now. It used to be in the evenings, but that's okay. Um, the rest of the time, I'm dealing with stuff, just the stuff, the everyday life stuff that comes in, replying to emails, doing the admin, like my accountant asking for bank statements or stuff, all that sort of things. The rest of the time, I'm dealing with that stuff, but I do always protect those 2 hours to get real work done.
That's great. What books would you advise to students or anyone to read on productivity or time management? What are the best books?
Well, the best book I would say right now, and it actually came out, I think, in 2015, is Atomic Habits. It's just brilliant.
It's
James
best.
Clear's
Yeah,
Atomic
James Clear.
Habits is a
Right.
must read. Yeah, it's a must read. Of course, my book, I'm going to say, Your Time, Your Way. I'm
Yeah.
definitely going to say that. Um, but there's also what I would suggest to people is go look for some of the older books on time management and productivity. Things like Stephen Covey's Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, which is
Yeah.
also a brilliant, brilliant book.
It's brilliant.
Um, Hiram Smith's 10 Natural Laws of Time and Life Management is also a brilliant book. I've just finished reading a book by Charles Hobbs, which is called Time Power. Um, the reason why I would always say to people is read these older books is because it helps you to understand where we've come from and where we are today. And yet, what you start to see is the principles have never changed. The
Yeah.
tools and the fashion has changed. The speed at which things get done today, or we can do today, has changed. But the principles have never ever changed. It's like, know what you want, figure out how you're going to do it, and then do it. I mean, that was around 2,000, 3,000 years ago, and it's still the same today. So I would say is try and find some of those older books, like definitely read Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, uh, 10 Natural Laws of Time and Life Management by Hiram Smith. Those books are a must to read because it really gives you an understanding of time management and productivity isn't about the here and now. It's about what you want and figuring out a pathway to getting there in the future.
Yeah. So the principles are same, but just the ways have been different right now. Ways are different right
Yeah,
now.
the tools have changed.
Yeah, the tools have
The tools have
changed,
always been changing.
and it will still change
And
after a
speed.
year or
We're obsessed with speed these days, but
yeah.
that's okay.
Yeah, one question I really wanted to ask: what's a failure or mistake in your life that taught you more about productivity than any success ever could?
Yeah. Now, when I saw your question earlier today, I had to think about this one and I realized there is one because I still regret this.
Yeah.
Um, Now, back in the when I was a teenager, I was a competitive athlete. I did 800 meters and 1500 meters running, and at one stage,
That's
I
great.
think when I was 15, I was something like the third fastest in the UK for my age.
Wow.
So, 1988 Olympic Games was in Seoul, and I was so inspired. I said, right, 1992 Barcelona Olympics, I'm going to be there. That was my goal, and it didn't happen. And it didn't happen because I was in 1988, I turned 18. To 1992, I would have been 22, which was perfect to be an Olympic runner.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, turning 18 in the UK meant that you are now legally allowed to drink, go clubbing, drive cars, and I got completely distracted by all the wonderful things a teenager of a late teenager, early 20s could do. So running and training dropped off, and my social life exploded, and I had a really, really happy time. Unfortunately, I didn't get to the Barcelona Olympics, and there's a very good reason. I lost focus. I didn't remain consistent. Now, the lesson I learned there is if you want to build a multi-million-dollar business, you're going to have to make sacrifices. There's no shortcuts. It's all about sacrifice. I remember if you've ever read Steve Jobs' biography by Walter Isaacson,
Yeah. Yeah.
as you read that, you realize that you really would not want to be stuck in a bar talking
No.
to Steve Jobs because it would have been boring. Same with Bill Gates. Although Bill Gates has changed in recent years, but the early, younger
Yeah.
Bill Gates, it would have been boring sitting talking to them in a bar because they were just single track mind. But they didn't care because they had a focus, they had a purpose, and they were going to do it. And they were going to change the world, and they did change the world. And this is one of the things that if I always say to people is if you want to be an entrepreneur, forget the social life. It ain't going to happen. What you see on social media, all these young guys driving around in Ferraris and Lamborghinis and Bugattis, it's all show. It's not real.
Yeah.
Real
That's true.
entrepreneurship is down in the weeds, working 16, 17 hours a day. It's not for everyone. Not everyone wants to do that. And that's fine because if everyone did it, it wouldn't work. So,
Yeah.
but the thing I learned most about is that whatever you want to be successful at, you're going to have to sacrifice a lot. And
The
that's why
greater
it's
the
not for
yeah,
everyone. And that's fine.
the greater the sacrifice, the greater the reward.
Absolutely. It's what they call delayed gratification. No, these
Yeah.
days everyone wants gratification now. Nobody's
Yeah.
willing to do the hard work to get it later, but it's going to be much bigger if you do.
Yeah. Basically, they trade off the big goal for the small pleasure for today, right? That's what you did.
Yes.
That's what I did. That's what everybody is doing in this
Mm.
age.
Yeah. Mm.
It's tough to
But
tackle
that's
that.
good because it makes it easier for those who stay focused.
Yeah,
Less competition.
that's why competition these days are very easy, right? Everybody is distracted, everybody's out of shape, everybody is just procrastinating. So if you want to be exceptional, you can be really exceptional by just doing basic things, you know, just basic things.
Absolutely.
It's
That's
very
why I
easy
would
to,
always recommend Atomic Habits.
yeah. And deep work, I have read back Cal Newport. It's also
Yeah.
exciting.
Yeah. Mm.
One last question.
Absolutely.
Uh,
Mm.
if you could go back and give yourself one piece of advice about productivity, what would it be, and how do you think it would have changed your journey?
Yeah, again, I was thinking about this one earlier, and I thought, well, I was quite lucky because in middle school, I became obsessed with time management, and I was drawing out timetables for studying and stuff like that. I was terrible at studying. I was, as we talked about earlier, I wasn't doing the thing, but I was planning the thing. I was very good at planning the thing, just terrible at doing the thing. So, in a sense, I was very lucky because if somebody asked me what would you change, I don't think I would actually change very much, because I've always been pretty focused on what I want. Being an athlete as a teenager meant that I had to sacrifice. So I learned about sacrifice early on. Like, whilst my friends were
Yeah.
smoking and drinking when before it was legal, I was out training. I was doing the cross country runs. It was tough, but I enjoyed it because it gave me structure in my day. So I think, if anything, is get comfortable with structure because your life is going to be structured. Whether you like it or not, it's going to be structured. You get a job, 9 till 5. You get married, you've got to spend time with your family. Structured, structure, structure. So I would say is I was lucky. I learned about structure early on. I wish I'd learned it and stuck with it when I was 18. But we've all got to make those mistakes. I mean, that's what we learn from. I won't make that mistake again. But it's I don't think there's very much that I would actually change because for me it's been a journey, and every mistake I've made has been a lesson that was just part of who I am. It's been part of the journey, but it's also the mistakes have pushed me onto the right path. So I wouldn't change anything.
Yeah. Uh, Mistakes are a good thing because it does changes you and teaches you a lot of lesson. So I
It
think there is
does.
no
It
point
does.
in change.
Mm,
I think there is no point in changing
mm.
the mistakes, right?
No, well, you can't anyway. You just made the mistake,
Yeah.
so you can't change it. But
Yeah,
you
we
have
can't.
to. But the great thing about the mistake is it actually pushes you to make the right, to walk on the right path.
Yeah, and you just grow by that.
Mm, mm.
What are the first things that people should avoid doing in the morning after they wake up to make their day productive? And this is I really want to know because I struggle with it a lot.
Well, I think that it's not so much about avoiding things. I think it's more about having a set morning routine. Now, I love this. I mean, I first learned about the power of morning routines from Robin Sharma in his 5 a.m. Club book. Um, and I was a bit skeptical at first, but then I did try, not the 5 a.m. I'm not a morning person, but I did try the idea of, well, I actually quite like the idea of having a structured morning when I start. I don't do the 5 a.m. club, which is 20 minutes of exercise, 20 minutes planning, 20 minutes of studying. I don't do that. But what I do now is wake up in the morning, I put coffee on, I make coffee, I drink my lemon juice, I sit down and write my journal, then I clear my email inbox. Now, I've been doing that consistently for 5 years. And so now every single day starts exactly the same way. It means that when I've finished and I've cleared my inbox, I'm ready for the day. I know exactly what I need to do. And it really starts with that morning routine. I'm not a big fan of that advice is don't check email first thing in the morning. I mean, in my business, most of my clients are in North America and Europe, so they're awake while I'm asleep. So I get a lot of my email through the night
Yeah.
while I'm sleeping. So it's important for me to check it. And I've just got into the habit. It's about clearing the inbox. It's not about doing email. I just clear the inbox and I'm ready to start the day. But it also alerts me to any appointments that may have changed. They'll come in through email. It may have alerted me to problems that I need to deal with that day. So it's important to get that out of the way. And then I'm clear. My brain is ready for that focused work at 9:30. And that's the critical thing. So have a structured start to the day and be consistent. Now, be careful here. You do not want to be saying, okay, I'm going to wake up at 7 a.m. in the morning. At 7:05, I'm going to do this at 7:15, because that's not reality. You're going to wake up early some days. You're going to wake up late some days. I work to the principle that before my first appointment, whatever it is, I need 45 minutes. So on a Monday, generally, I have to wake up at 6. I hate it. I don't like waking up at 6, but I do because I have a call at 7. So that means I have to wake up at 6 so that I can do my morning routines. Tomorrow, not tomorrow, Saturday morning. I don't have to wake up early, so I'll wake up at 8:30. But my day isn't going to really start until 9:30. So my morning routines are the same no matter what time I wake up. So that's the thing I would always say. It's not so much about avoiding stuff in the morning. It's about having a morning routine that is focused on you. So some people like to meditate, some people like to exercise. I write a journal and drink coffee. so, it needs to be focused on you, not focused on other people. So whatever you want to do in the morning, first thing, schedule the time for it and do it.
But we should avoid social medias during the day. Like for the students, like someone is preparing for the exam, they have to study. So when they wake up, what they do is they just take the phone and scroll through the Instagram or Twitter. Should they avoid that or do that?
Well, it's not focused on you. It's just looking at what everybody else is doing, which is likely to make you feel worse. So I would say first thing in the morning. Yeah, first thing in the morning. Don't do that. I mean, after you've done your morning routines, if that's what you want to do, then by all means do it. But your morning routines need to be focused on you and what you want, not looking at what other people are trying to tell you that they're doing, which is probably not what they're really doing.
Yeah, like when the
So,
first, yeah.
yeah, I always think of there's a time and place for social media. So, I generally look at social media later in the evening when I'm having dinner. Um, if I'm on my own, I'll certainly do it. If my wife's with me, I don't. We talk. But yeah, there's a time and place for social media, and it's one of those things that you just have to be disciplined with.
How do you define success?
Living a happy life, being happy with who you are. Now, if you think about that for a moment, if I worked for a company and my all I wanted to do was to live a stress-free um, life without too much interference from other people, I could stay at a, say, supervisory role and be happy. That's a successful life. I'm an ambitious person. I want to build my own business. So for me, that process of building my own business makes me happy. If you work for a big corporation and your goal is to become the CEO, and each day you're moving towards that goal, that's going to make you happy. Because ultimately, happiness comes from living a fulfilled life, which is moving towards the things that you want. What you'll find is growth, goals, and contributing to other people, helping other people will make you happy. So for me, it's about building a business that helps other people. That's what makes me happy. That's what gives me um, my buzz every day. And to me, that's what success is. If you can get through your life and say, "Yep, I've had a happy life," you've had a successful life. But it's certainly not about money, unless that's your goal. But I think most people who earn lots of money eventually realize money ain't going to make you happy. But living the life that you want to live and that sense of growth and achievement and fulfillment, that is what will make you happy. That is what success is. It's living a happy life.
So productivity does matter in success, right?
Absolutely, yes. You've got to be productive to be able to achieve the things that you want to achieve. But as I say, productivity is very difficult to measure as a knowledge worker. Um, but moving forward, setting goals, that's where you'll feel happy.
Yeah. Thank you for doing this. I really appreciate it. Thank you for doing this.
Oh, you're
I
welcome.
really learned a lot.
No, it's been a pleasure talking to you.
Yeah. Uh, I'm gonna read your book next time because I really had a very small interval of time to prepare for this. Next time I'm gonna read your book
Mhm.
and then we are gonna talk about that.
Okay, no problem.
Thank you for coming here. Thank you really. Thank you so much.
You're very,
Thank you
very
so.
welcome. Okay, take
Have a
care.
good day.
Bye. Bye bye.
Have a good day.
You too.